What's going on, everybody? This is Living in Arizona Now, and today we're going to talk about the LA riots and what's happening in Arizona as it pertains to the ICE raids that began in early June that have set off this firestorm of riots. And what you're seeing now is like destruction of Los Angeles and how Arizona could be on the verge of something similar. I mean, right now there was protests taking place in downtown Phoenix. Anti-ICE protesters, they're marching in downtown Phoenix right now. And I'm going to give some of my insight as someone who's been to 90 different countries and tell you how I feel about U.S. Customs or U.S. border enforcement. And I will tell you right now, every single country on this planet has strict immigration, including Mexico, including all of Latin American countries. If you didn't know that already, I mean, I'm just going to put that out there right now before anyone even tries to bring any sort of heat about this. I'm just going to tell you, as someone who's been to 90 countries, I have yet to be to one country where I can just, willy-nilly just walk into that country without having the proper documents. If I want to go to India, I've got to apply for the visa. It's going to take a few days to get here. If I want to go to Vietnam, I've got to wait 10 days for the visa. And if I show up to Vietnam without that visa, they'll kick me out. If I overstay my visa, they will actually, it could be really bad. Like, I mean, it's just like common sense. Anyone who's trying to say, like, hey, we don't need immigration or laws about immigration, it's like this and that. It's like, no, every country on earth has the same kind of enforcement. I don't know why the US should be this one country on earth where it's like we'll have this gray area, because no other country has a gray area. So that's kind of one thing I wanted to say as someone who's traveled. And I respect every country because, when you're in their country, you're a guest in that country. And so I'm going to also talk about some of the legitimate grievances that the migrants have, people coming here from Mexico or other countries. And we're going to talk about how they also have some grievances that are valid. So if you guys are excited for this video, smash up the likes. We already got 10 likes coming in. I don't know what time it is where you guys are, but Norman in San Diego, good morning. You guys can hear me loud and clear. If you can hear me loud and clear, let me know in the comments. But yeah, so the first thing I wanted to say, I already got it off my chest, is every country on earth enforces strict immigration laws. But one thing that I would say that kind of doesn't make any sense, I know that if I ever saw Americans in another country burning or holding our flag, the US flag, and standing on top of cars while throwing Molotov cocktails, whether it be in Thailand or Singapore or Dubai, if they were civilians and they were doing that, I would 100% condemn that behavior, and I would not condone it at all. I don't know anyone who would condone that. So if you're one of those people who are condoning the violence and the riots and the basically destruction of the cities while someone is holding a flag from another country, okay, that doesn't make sense. Make that make sense to me. That would be the first thing that I would say, because I could tell you right now, I would be absolutely embarrassed. And I know people from Mexico who are embarrassed. They're like, these people don't represent Mexico. Mexico doesn't think like this. Mexico doesn't behave like this. We don't destroy cities in other countries with our civilians. I mean, military is a different subject. I'm talking about civilians, okay? So, I mean, I just don't know anyone who's going to really side with that. I mean, I would say if these people really wanted to stay in the United States, what I would encourage them to do would be to fly the American flag and tell us why you should be able to stay, and tell us how much you love America. Because what that's going to do is it's going to get people to say, hey, look, I see the value in you. I see what you do that's good. Let's see what we can do to get you proper documentation to stay in the United States. I have lots of friends from Mexico who are legally in the United States who do not support the violence and what we're seeing on the streets, where, people are standing on top of cop cars with Molotov cocktails, burning it down, taking hammers to the windows of police vehicles, and then basically like insurrectionists. I mean, I'm telling you, if you knew how many friends I have that were in the military, I have Mexican friends from the military that are in law enforcement, that work on oil rigs, they work in Texas oil fields. They don't support this. So it's like, this is a fringe group of people who I understand are upset, and I get it. Okay. But what you don't do is you don't just start destroying cities out of protest, especially if you're already someone who's, kind of slipped in, you've been hiding out, you're not exactly legal, you don't have legal citizenship. So what you should be doing is trying to show people why they should allow you to stay. That would be the advice I would give to anyone who's upset or frustrated. So that's one thing that I would say. Now, if oh, I see the comments. Someone says loud and clear. It's 8 a.m. in Phoenix. Thank you, everyone who's smashing up the likes. So the things that wait, loud and clear, exactly. Let me know what you guys think, but I'm going to keep going here. Now, the thing that's going on is, so Trump has called in, or he's taken over the National Guard in California. So the National Guard is now federalized. So the federal government has taken over the National Guard in California. This kind of stuff can happen real quick in Arizona. If it heats up, if they don't nip it, if they don't nip it in the butt real quick, it could erupt a little bit more, and then it could carry over into other states like Arizona, Texas, especially the border states. So Governor Newsom is calling it an overreach. Now, so the governor and the mayor are basically watching their cities burn down, and they're just like, hey, we got this under control, even though they don't. That trying to rationalize that just doesn't make sense. But like I said, I am going to give a case about why some people may be upset or feel justified in doing this. Number one is, I've always said this, there are people who have come to the United States illegally who have done a lot of honest, good work in our country, helped build houses, helped clean, do whatever. I mean, I've seen them in all different types of walks of life doing jobs that American citizens don't want to do, whether it's in the farms, in the fields. And I've seen it, and they work some grueling hours. And you go out to a construction site in Arizona and you hear mariachi music. That's not because there's a bunch of gringos sitting out there, pounding nails in 110-degree heat. It's just not going on. And so I do respect the people who've done that. Okay. And those are not the people that are out there burning down the streets, by the way. Okay. The people who are burning down the streets, these are people who've been looking for excuses to burn down the streets. These are people who don't actually love the United States. They love to destroy things, and that's what they're doing. Some of them have legitimate grievances, and I understand that. And one of them is that, at one point in time, California and Arizona used to be part of Mexico. But that was 170 years ago, okay, thereabouts. I think in like 1850, California became part of the United States. Back then, it was called Alta California. If you go down to southern, the Baja, that's called Baja California. So Baja California, Baja Sur, and then you have Alta California, which is modern day California. But it's not Mexico. For 170 years, it's been part of the United States, okay? But there are movements out there that tell people, hey, that's occupied land. This used to be part of this and that. But one thing I could tell you, traveling to 90 countries, you'd be surprised how many of these countries have redrawn maps. Whether you're in Turkey and you're talking about the Ottoman Empire, the Roman Empire. For example, at one point in time, Turkey, where modern day Istanbul is, that was part of the Roman Empire until the Ottomans took it from them. Okay, so maps have been redrawn throughout history. Okay, just if you even look at Russia, what's going on? They're taking parts of Crimea and they're taking other parts of Ukraine, and the maps are being redrawn. China recently took Tibet, right? So, I mean, maps get redrawn all the time. But here's what I'm saying is that's just not going to work as an excuse to be able to say, hey, we can come here illegally. We can do whatever we want because this is stolen land. It's occupied land. No, it's part of the United States. California was the 35th state. Arizona was like what, the 49th state, the 48th state, something like that. State 48, right? Anyway, it's just, I get that. I get the logic that, hey, this used to be Mexico and all that, but it's not. Okay. It hasn't been for 170 years. Right now, California answers to Washington, D.C. Okay. And every country on earth, as I've said from the very beginning of this video, has immigration laws that they enforce, including Mexico. I know people who overstayed their visa in Mexico and they ended up in Mexican jail for like over a month. Okay. I've seen the videos. Go on YouTube. You could see what happens to someone from America if they go to Mexico and they overstay their visa, meaning they're illegally in Mexico. They get arrested and they go to jail. I mean, America's giving them the deal. They're saying, hey, look, If you're here illegally, we'll buy you a ticket home, and then you go back to your country of origin. It's not just Mexico, by the way. Mexico. Everyone thinks it's Mexico only because they're the southern border state, but they're coming from a lot of different places. And basically, the deal is, hey, if you're in the country illegally, you can go. And they were told that for about 3 or 4 months, right? And then so they didn't. The people who kind of didn't, they called the bluff. They didn't think it was serious. They overstayed. They're still here. Those are the people that are now confronting, National Guard, confronting SWAT teams, confronting FBI, confronting Customs and Border Patrol, all these different, I just don't get it. To me, it's like, hey, if you want to stay in the U.S., hold the American flag and tell us why. What reasons? I mean, that would be the very first thing that I would do. Like if I wanted to stay in Singapore, if I wanted to stay in Thailand, if I wanted to stay in Mexico, I can tell you right now, if I ever saw an American citizen go down to Mexico and then start holding the American flag and start burning down police headquarters, police cars, I would absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, say you are a piece of you know what. Do not ever do that and embarrass America by doing that kind of behavior. Do not behave like that. You know better than that. That's how I would approach that. So I'm just saying, like, that's why I know a lot of my Mexican friends are also saying, hey, dude, you don't do that. That's not law abiding. People who are honest, everyday, hardworking people do not just all of a sudden start attacking police vehicles and throwing Molotov cocktails and burning down cities. I mean, can someone tell me how that makes sense? Shamansequenza says immigrants are not the cause of your suffering. So I want to get a couple things out there. Number one is I've been in 90 countries. I travel. I'm around people who don't look like me all the time. And I love it. I prefer it. Okay. I'm not all about being around people who look like me. If I was all about being like around people who look like me and I preferred that, then where would I probably live? Probably in, I don't know, Payson or something. And I would just be like, hunkered down. I'd be like this and that. I love Mexico as a country. I would probably live in Mexico, but I will tell you right now, if I went down to Mexico and I lived in Mexico, I would have to apply and I'd have to, if I had to wait 6 months, if I had to wait a year, I would do it. As a matter of fact, every time I go to another country and I have to wait 6 months or 3 months or whatever for the visa to go through, I do it. I don't just say, oh, well, I'm 15 days away. They'll probably let me in and all that. Come on. I get it. So, and of course, this is a hot button subject. People are going to get upset about it. I see people in the comments getting upset about it. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to say is, and I've said this many times, people from Mexico work very hard. Okay. They come to the United States, they build our houses, they build our buildings, they build our roads, and they do work and jobs that you gringos don't want to do. And if you're a gringo and you don't want to admit that, then you're a liar. Because I can tell you right now, the amount of hard work that I've seen from people from other countries, in particular Mexico, in Arizona, you cannot deny it. But we also have to have immigration enforcement, right? Why? Every country on earth has that. It's not about politics, it's common sense. I mean, it's funny, people are like, oh, your politics is showing, or my common sense is showing, and your lack of common sense, possibly. I don't know what you think, but I mean, I definitely would say there needs to be compassion and respect shown to people who are immigrants. Absolutely. There's to dehumanize people is unethical, right? Can we all agree with that? So, but what we're saying is every country on earth has immigration laws. And if there is one country on earth that doesn't have immigration laws, please tell me in this chat and I'll wait. So it is what it is. It is what it is. No one's going to be able to show me a single country on earth where you can go into that country and overstay your visa, overstay without, being deported, or in some cases, like in Mexico, where they'll arrest you and put you in a Mexican prison. So Now that we've established that fact, I don't see why anyone would be like, yeah, hey, I mean, if anything, what we should be arguing is, number one is, why is it so hard for hardworking migrants to get legal status? That is something that we could argue. I will argue that because that would be a fact. Jen and my boy says, I do agree with you. If we all could just follow the law, the world would be so much better. Well, no one's perfect. Let's just get that right out there. Not a single one of us is perfect, right? Like, I mean, I don't know the last time you did a rolling stop, or you were speeding in a zone that you shouldn't have been speeding. No one's perfect, right? I mean, some people have too many drinks and they don't get caught, but whatever it is, the point is that there, as a country, we have immigration rules and they have to be enforced because every other country does it. As I've said, I've been to 90 countries and not one country is just going to say, hey, it's cool, you overstayed your visa, just run along. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around how anyone in this chat is even trying to justify that. I don't understand it. So anyway, I just wanted to put this video out there and say that, number one, we shouldn't dehumanize people. We should have respect for the migrants who've done some great things in this country, whether it be build those houses that are all across Queen Creek or the Valley, or the people who have, grown and farmed the food and put it on your plates. I mean, there is a lot of respect that's due to those people. And as a matter of fact, every time I meet someone who tells me they're illegal, I sympathize with their story and I understand. And I just basically say, like, I treat them as a normal person. So, and like I said, I mean, this has nothing to do with attacking Mexico. Okay. I love Mexico. I've been all over Mexico. I've been to Oaxaca. I've been to Jalisco. I love the food. I love the people. Of course, some areas are a little bit dangerous. No one likes dangerous places. But other than that, I have nothing negative to say about Mexico. It's a beautiful country. Latin America, I love Latin America. I've been to Panama, Costa Rica. I've been to Ecuador, and I want to go back. I would actually live in Mexico. But if I was to live in Mexico, I know that I would have to follow all of the immigration laws. If it took 6 months or a year for me to get residency or citizenship, then that's what it would take. But I'm not going to go down there and try and live or buy a house in Mexico without proper documentation. Do you get what I'm saying? And so that's just how it works. And certainly I'm not going to go down there and start flying the American flag with a Molotov cocktail in my hand and start trying to throw it onto the ground and burn down, buildings. I mean, anyone who's trying to justify that, please tell me how that's justifiable. I don't think anyone can get it. I don't think anyone can really do that. So I know this is a hot button subject and people are really, not happy with this subject, but it's happening. And you have to have that dialogue. But I think it works both ways. There has to be a mediation. There has to be a mediator, someone who's in between. Thank you to the 92 people who smashed up the likes. So, I mean, but at the end of the day, I think the two things that need to happen, number one is you need to follow the rules of the immigration process. And then number two is people need to have a lot more respect for the people who do jobs that, not everyone wants to do. And then I guess you could put a number three in there and say, well, what can we do to make it possible for these people to stay? But you have to remember they did try to do that and people overstay. I mean, this is happening in some countries. They come to the United States and then they just overstay. So it happens in every country. I mean, people who overstay, or they do it everywhere. Americans go places and overstay. There's Americans living in Mexico who are illegally staying there. So I mean, it works on both sides of the on the token. But I know people are like, they can't handle the idea of having a reasonable or rational debate or dialogue about this. And this is why we have so much confusion. This is why we have our cities burning, is because too many people are afraid to actually have the conversation and look at both sides. And all I'm trying to do is say, hey, here's both sides. Let's look at both sides. One, we have hardworking people who are being criminalized. Okay. But on the other end, we have people who need to follow the law because we're a nation of laws, immigration laws. Like I said, not a country on planet Earth that you can go to, including Mexico, and overstay your visa and not expect to be deported. Come on. Mexico is a beautiful country and they've got laws. And if you go to Mexico and you overstay your visa in Mexico, you will possibly end up in Mexican jail or you will be deported. You're not allowed to just stay. So I think this is, once you know this fact, it's really hard for you to kind of like say anything outside of it. I mean, it's kind of like checkmate in that column. So it is what it is. But Firefly or Fire Guy says, be thankful you don't live in Cali. Well, I would, my message to the protesters would be fly the American flag and show us why you love America and show us why you should stay. Don't bomb the city. Don't bomb the city. That never works. When does that ever work? So we'll see what ends up happening. Noberto says, whoever is in power makes the laws, even if it's unjust. You're right. Noberto, you're right. And, you know, there are some points. I've actually seen you made some really intelligent conversation here. If I could read everything that you were saying. Your thinking and logic is why war in the world never ends. Oh, okay. Whoever is, someone says, people want to be here for a better life. Yes, that makes sense. Someone says, there's a thing called seasonal migrant work visas, and there's no shortage of applicants. I know a lot of people around the world who have applied for U.S. Residency. Like, these are really good people, like people that I say, you know, just let me know and I'll vouch for you. Like, I know you're a good person, and they've been denied. And I'm kind of always a little bit embarrassed about it because I'm like, dude, the U.S. needs you. I know people from Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia. I mean, a lot of different places. These are like really high quality people, like good people. You know what I'm talking about. And they've been denied. And so, but you know, they accept it. I mean, I feel really embarrassed actually when they get denied, but they accept it and they say, well, I'll try again. And I say, you know, let me know if there's anything I can do to help you because I'll vouch for you. And I'm talking about people that I know who are really good people. Someone says, I hope we don't see riots here in Phoenix. Well, that's what we're kind of talking about. It's possible. Someone says, true, this man is an imperialist. He would be a plumber on the Death Star. Who's that? Someone says, follow the rules and get in line or for the hiring. Man. Wow, the comment section is tough. Francine says, what about Mexican people who actually come here legally? Yeah, I mean, they're staying. So, I mean, what about them? They're Americans. So, it is what it is. Someone said, I see it happening in Phoenix. Someone says, it's a slap in the face to the grandparents who did it the legal way. For the American taxpayer is done footing the bill for illegal. Okay. It's such a complicated issue, but it's an issue that always comes up, right? I mean, it's really a complicated one. Noberto says, thanks for being honest. Yeah, I mean, I was looking for your other comments earlier because you were saying some stuff that made sense. Someone says, you can't reason with evil, bro. You can make all the sense you want. Evil doesn't care. I wouldn't even call most people evil that are like 95%, literally like 90 to 95% of the people who are quote unquote undocumented or illegal are pretty good people. I mean, there's going to be like a 5 to 10% margin. Like 1 in 10 people might be here to do some, you know, shady stuff, but 9 out of 10, I would say, are here to work, earn money, and, you know, they contribute to society in a healthy way. That's what I would say. Country Girl says, my Hispanic best friend is just as pissed as I am. Oh, I know. I've got tons of Hispanic friends on my Facebook who are all in agreement with what I was saying. That's why I made the video, because they're in agreement. They said, oh, what if we went down to Mexico and did that in Mexico? And I said, yeah, I mean, that's, so a lot of Mexicans are in agreement with the fact that you don't just firebomb cities if you're mad. I definitely can tell you the type of person that I am. If I seen these people getting, deported, and I knew that they worked hard and they were flying the American flag and they were, peacefully protesting, in my mind, my heart goes out to them and I'm like, man, what can we do to help these people stay? They obviously love our country. They obviously love our country. They should stay. Let's find a way to help them stay. But when you obviously show that you don't love the country and you're willing to burn it down, come on. Come on, guys. Come on. That's like, it's like, okay, if I throw a house party and I say, hey, the party's over, you got to go home, and then they start trashing my house because I said you got to go home. Are those people you're going to invite back to your house party? Do you get what I'm saying? I mean, have you guys ever thrown a house party and had people who were kind of like taking your house for granted? They didn't have any respect for your house and they were just like trashing it. And you were like, hey, the party's done and you got to go home, and they were like disrespecting you in your own house. I mean, come on. Whose house is it? Someone says, whose house is it though? Well, it's the United States house. So it's a country. The United States is a country. Just like every other country on earth, there's 195 countries, and every one of them has immigration rules. If you can name for me one country on earth that doesn't have immigration rules about having documentation that says your legal status, then we can, expand the conversation beyond that. But I can tell you right now, having been to 90 countries, not single one of them was I ever allowed to overstay my visa or enter the country without a document. And I wouldn't do it. Why? Because that's illegal. What I'm saying is illegal to do that. And if I did do that, I would get deported. You get what I'm saying? Noberto says, follow the rules, follow the unjust rules, and get in line is low-level thinking. No one talks about the solutions. It's lazy thinking to just deport. There is some truth to that. I understand. I don't know how long you guys have been following this channel, but on this channel, multiple times over, I've defended the people who work, do the work that Americans don't want to do, because I respect them. I've worked on job sites where the people didn't speak any English, and they were such respectable people. You were just like, man, these guys would come in, they would mix cement, and they would just build the house in like, I don't know, 7 days. And you're just like, you guys are awesome. These are people that probably didn't have legal status. So I mean, I could definitely, sympathize. I can feel it. I felt it. I felt like, dude, these guys they're here to work. And guess what they would do at night? Go home and come back in the morning. So, and man, they would show up, rain, snow, shine, hot as heck. So, man, respect to them. Oh, Semper Reformanda says, I support you, Jeff. I'm Hispanic and my family came here the right way. I have no problem with those that come here and work and don't get handouts. Those that protest and get welfare, send them back. Yeah, I know. I know what you're saying. And it's got to be a tough situation to be Hispanic and like, see your fellow Hispanic countrymen, getting mistreated. Like, even if it doesn't even matter if you're Hispanic or not, like you don't want to see people get mistreated. Like, dude, I don't want to see anyone get mistreated, especially someone who I know is working hard and they're just trying to make an average day. They're trying to put food on the table, but it's got to be extra hard if you're someone from Mexican heritage and you're seeing this, but you also are like, man, you can't do this. You can't burn down cities. It's got to be really hard. I mean, that's torn, but I put myself in that position and I said, well, if the tables were turned, because this is how I approach pretty much everything. If the tables were turned and it was Americans doing this in, say, Mexico, who would I side with? And in my mind, I came to the conclusion I would side with the Mexican people and the Mexican government, saying that you cannot do that in Mexico. That's how I knew what my final outcome of the answer was going to be. If someone was going to go to Mexico as an American citizen, throwing Molotov cocktails, burning down Mexican City federal buildings, who would I side with? Who would you side with? Would you side with Mexico, the Mexican authorities, and the people of Mexico? Or would you side with the Americans who are doing those improper behaviors? Really? I mean, that's what it came down to for me. Someone says, this guy has such a normal boomer take. All right. Hey, what'd you post, William? Did you really? I have to look. Where did you? Let me take a look. There was a lot of chats that came through here. Tell me what you said, William, and I'll look for it. All right. Kathleen says Hispanic and my family did the same. 100. If we went back to Mexico and riot, it would not be tolerated. Yeah, I hear you. But the thing, one thing I do not approve of is dehumanizing people. Like I'm not a big fan of like I just mistreatment of anybody. I'm really not. So like I kind of tread a thin line. Like the people who are like that are considered undocumented, but I know they're doing an honest day's work every day, day in, day out. Honestly, my condolences and my sympathy goes out to you because I know what you've done for this country. I know your contribution. I really do. I mean, that's who I sympathize with. That's why I know that if people were like flying the American flag and they were like protesting and they were saying like we love this country, we want to stay because we care about this country, that way more people are going to like line up and be like, yo, we love this. We love you. But someone says, I love when these people in the comments talk about how it's not criminal getting deported. It's good people. How the F do you know are standing there checking their eye? Okay. JB, here's a good one. Mexico is a beautiful country. Why does everyone want to come across the border? When I was in Mexico last time, back in 2023 was it, or 2022? I was like, man, I love Mexico. I want to live here. But of course, because it's not easy to just like live there because you've got to file documents and get residency and all this stuff. Because you can't overstay your visa down there. But I was like, man, I love Mexico. I'm like, dude, I could totally live in Mexico. Like, I'm like, man, I could see how Mexicans could say, why are all these Americans down here in Mexico? And actually, Mexicans do say that about Americans. They're like, why are all you Americans coming down to Mexico? Go back to your country. And I'm like, oh, that's funny because, the tables have turned, right? It's kind of funny. But it's true. Someone says everyone came as refugees, even the Spanish explorers and the British, Portuguese, French, Dutch. Yeah, but this whole thing goes back to the fact that like all the whole entire world as we know it, the maps have been redrawn and drawn again and redrawn again and drawn again. Even like the Native Americans when they were here, like they would go to war and then they would take the land and then a war would come back and the land would change hands again. I mean, this happens. It happened in Europe. It happened in the Incas. I mean, if you ever go down to the Peru, you'll hear the history of the Incas. I can't remember the name of the Inca leader, but it's quite a crazy story about the Inca leader, how he, conquered a lot of how he united the Inca Empire. But I mean, what I'm saying is that was an example of the conquest that took place. So I mean, this stuff, it's not like something that's just unique to this generation or the last 300 years or something like that. I mean, at one point in time, the Egyptians who live in Egypt now were not the same people who built the pyramids. You could say that about a lot of different things. Even in Phoenix, for example, the people who built the canal system, the Ho'okam, that's a whole civilization that no longer exists. They were replaced by the Apaches. So I mean, this kind of stuff happens, but we are here now, and we know what the maps look like. We know what the United Nations identifies as 195 countries. So these are things that we have to go off of right now. We can argue the whole like what it used to be and what it could be and what it should be and all that. I mean, but we go off of what the United Nations identifies as 195 countries. There's like 3 or 4 countries that are like kind of like Taiwan, Palestine, and like a couple others that, are kind of recognized but not fully recognized by the United Nations. But the United States is 50 states, and California and Arizona are 2 of them. So someone says we need to discern between a protest and a riot. We have amendment rights. There you go. That's a legitimate statement. That is true, because I think protests. I actually support their right to protest, because I know the amount of good work that the migrants, the immigrants, the undocumented immigrants have actually done in this country, and I'll fight for that all day long. The fact that these people built your homes, built your roads, farmed a lot of the food that you eat. I'll fight for that all day long, because that's just facts. At the end of the day, the only thing that counts is facts, right? So I mean, there's a lot of people, but then there's a lot of people who, did some things that were not good, and that's unfortunately the bad ruined it for the good, right? I mean, that's kind of what ended up happening, is like the bad being like the burning down cities, taking over cop cars. I mean, you can't burn down you can't take over a cop car and start pounding the windows out of a cop car, and then you just can't do that. You can't throw Molotov cocktails at federal buildings. You can't do that anywhere in the world, including the United States. You can't. So I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get where people are like, yeah, that's awesome, do it. They have the right to do that. No, you can't. You can't do that, no matter how mad you are. John says throwing rocks and burning property is a riot. Yeah, it is. What did you write, William? You said you did a super chat. It only says there's one super chat here. I don't know what did you put on a super chat? You did a super chat, and what? This guy William is like going on about a super chat. I don't see a single super chat in here. It says I posted a super chat. I only see one in there. If you guys what did you put, William? What is the question that you asked for a super chat? This guy is really railing on about this. Like, he's really into it. I don't even really care about super chats. That's a YouTube thing. I have no control over super chats. But if you write a super chat, I'll look for it. He says, I paid for a super chat that didn't get posted. I have the receipt for my card to show I paid. Oh, okay. Dude, actually, like I said, that's frustrating. That would be irritating to me for sure, but I don't run the super chat. That's a YouTube monetization thing, and like getting a hold of YouTube for that is like crazy. Maybe you can submit. Did you pay by credit card? Or I mean, I apologize if that's happened, and if you want, I can try and answer the question here, but um I don't know if you know how YouTube monetization works, but I have like no control over any of it. No creator does. No creator has any control over it. The only type of control I have over super chat is, what happens right here. Someone says they were charged $5. So I'm sorry that happened. Someone said, I wrote, speak the truth about who's the real problem in America. I wasn't cursing or being disrespectful. Okay. You want me to answer who I think is the real problem in America? Oh man, that's a whole complicated can of worms, man. That's a very complicated situation. I would say, wow, who do you think it is? You tell me, and I'll let's see who you think it is. I would say it's not just one single thing. I mean, it's not immigrant. I would say it's not immigrant. I would say blaming the immigrants is, a cop out. Like, that's like blaming China for drugs. Like, the fact that so many people are on drugs in the United States is not because of China. It's not because of Mexico. It's because Americans have this, like, no one put a gun to someone's head and said, hey, start doing drugs. Like, I know a lot of people who at a very young age go to EDM, EDC parties, and they take drugs, designer drugs at those parties. And that's how it kind of begins. Like, there's a gateway. Like, Burning Man, Coachella. I mean, a lot of these people, that's where it all begins. So, you can blame someone else, you can blame another country, but at the end of the day, you have to look at like personal accountability about what caused people to become drug addicts. Because if you look at the fentanyl crisis, right, there's this thing about fentanyl, but everyone's like, oh, stop bringing it into the country. And then someone else will say, well, if Americans didn't have a drug problem, this wouldn't even be a thing to begin with. And then you kind of have to look at it from all angles, and what it comes down to is like, how did someone get into a drug that's so deadly as fentanyl, right? Well, usually what ends up happening is they get into some other drug through some other gateway, and then they get into this drug through all that. So I mean, I would say, yeah, you have to take the people who get into it. They're why did they get into it in the first place? It wasn't because someone forced them to do it, you know. So I mean, at the end of the day, I would say the truth will set you free, right? So what we're looking for is the truth about the situation, right? I think that's what we need to be focused on. Someone says vandalism is illegal, period, no matter who is doing it. Someone said, I was talking about this yesterday. I remember when it was Oxycontin first, it was given in hospitals when you got in a car accident. Yeah, I mean, dude, I met people who like had surgery, got issued Oxycontin. They were like really in a bad mind state. And they had a upset stomach, but they could see how it was very addictive. And they just said, I'm not going to take this, even though they had legitimate pain. So some people get hooked through pharma. I mean, young kids getting prescribed Ritalin, that's a gateway right there, in my opinion, because if a young kid starts taking Ritalin at such a young age, they already are dependent on some sort of like pill or something, right? I mean, think about that. Think about that. So I mean, but again, placing blame is really it's such a can of worms. It's such a Pandora's box situation. Someone says, if you can say who is the issue, you will be deleted, screen silenced, comments will never be. Oh yeah, yeah. I actually don't even want to try and answer that because I don't want any problems. um. So someone says, who are the illegals here? Well, who do you think are the illegals? I'll let you say that. You can say that. Everyone wants an excuse or a quick fix. There you go, Chad. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Someone says, what about the children being separated into trafficking on corporate level? Yeah, I mean, that's sad. I mean, that's terrible. If that's happening, I mean, that's just atrocious. That's horrible. There's no excuse for that. Someone said, just come here legally. I think, okay, but the idea about legally, okay, so there's a demand for the labor, but how come there isn't a path to getting the legal status to be able to do the work? And that is something that's always been an issue in the United States. Americans should be loyal to America, not a foreign country. Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of how it is. All right, William says MAGA is the illegals. Okay. Um, John says a crazy time right now. This looks like 2020 all over. What if the tactic was more control and suppression? Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, when stuff like this happens, at the end of the day, most Americans will lose some sort of right. I mean, this is kind of what happened, like, September 11th led to what? When we go to the airport, we got to all go through all this crazy screening where you just basically like, it's so annoying, isn't it? I mean, but someone decided to hijack some planes, and now everyone's got to go through like these radar detection things and everything. And it's like every time there's some sort of like big outburst, everyone else who's just kind of going about their business ends up getting sucked into some sort of problem. Or it's crazy. Yeah, it's a tough subject to talk about. I mean, even like going live about it is like not something that I really wanted to do, but I felt like the situation as it pertains to Arizona, you know, it's worthwhile having a conversation. And this is a very sticky situation, a lot of politics involved in it, and it's tough. It's not easy. I hear you, William, man. It's not. I mean, there's a lot of tough situations going on. Uh, but I'm trying to sift through all the. There's a lot of political statements being made in the comments. So Chad says green cards are the path. Amazing in Yuma. Hang on to the San Luis border crossing every day and watch it unfold. Someone says we mad. Not only are they targeting our people, but also they are targeting us. That is one thing that I agree. Okay, he says they could also be potentially targeting people who are here legally. Legal. If that starts happening, my whole mood towards the whole situation changes. If they start going after legal immigrants, I will not support that at all. That is when I all of a sudden flip to the other side and I start 100% supporting immigrants. 100%. And the reason is because that's not cool. That's a threat. That's a threat to civilization and society. If they start going after legal people who have immigrated here from other countries, whether it be Mexico or another country, that's not cool. So if that starts happening, that's when they lose me off the whole thing. That's when I'm like, okay, this just crossed the line. So yes, if that ends up happening, I can 100% tell you that I will no longer support deportation. I can understand deportation of people without legal status, but if they start deporting legal people, people who are here legally, that means they followed the correct avenues and they get kicked out. It's over. I'm not going to support that. I don't think anyone, and I would encourage every single one of you guys to not support that. So if that starts happening, that's a big problem. So the people who are making those decisions they would, not to mention the fact that Border Patrol and ICE, do you know how many Hispanics work for Border Patrol? They would never even be able to do that because like you know how many Hispanics are in the US military? Do you even know? Like I would say, man, when I was in the Navy, like some of our best workers, like the most patriotic, like soldiers, sailors, were Mexicans for real. They were like the hardest. Some of them were like the hardest workers. I'm not going to say that every single hard worker was from Mexico, but I'm saying like, man, those people had their heart was on the line for the United States. And if I knew that those people were at risk of being deported, no way I would support that. No way. No way. For what they gave, what they did, no way. And I'm just saying that. So when people say that they're going to start deporting legal migrants, that the administration would have to be crazy to even think that way. Crazy. That would be, dude, there's no way I could support that. No way. Carol says, my great grandfather came here illegally. He and his family went through Ellis Island, and I have the documents to prove it. Only people here legally are Native Americans, indigenous people, and black people. Okay, says William. I mean, that's a conversation that I'm not going to, get into. You're entitled to your opinion, and that, let's just say that's true. Let's just say it's not true. I mean, we could go back and forth, and that's just an argument that I'm not going to have on a live stream. That's like a trap. Like that, there's no winning that argument. There's no winning that discussion. I would say that my final answer to that would be that every single one of those groups of people deserve respect and fair treatment, respect and fair treatment. So other than that, I'm not going to, get too far into that. Jay says, like I said, will not happen. People in our government would have to bounce. Yeah, it's crazy. So Chad says, William, only Native Americans lived here before Europeans. Okay, that's another comment that's. No, I'm not going to go there. Why would I go there on a live stream? I mean, it's because this is what we know. Like, okay, so if you talk about the official history of where everyone came from, they all like they say the cradle of humanity originated in what? Ethiopia, right? That's where like the oldest human was ever found in West or East Africa, right? And then from there, humans like came out of Africa, right? And they migrated. And then they say that the Native Americans have a very strong ancestral bond, DNA wise, to the people of like Mongolia. And they say that the Native Americans came across on the land bridge. So they weren't even native to America. They were just the first people to arrive in the Americas whenever they came across the land bridge. That's what the history says. So if you want to talk about history, and we're just going off of the theory of evolution, this is not going off of what scriptures say and all that. But if you go off of the theory of evolution, it all began in Ethiopia, right? Which is East Africa. That's where the oldest person on planet Earth was ever found. So from there, everyone kind of began from the common ancestor. I want to say his name is Adam, but I don't think that's his name. What is the common ancestor that came from Ethiopia? That one I don't know. I forgot. Someone said, "Oh boy, oh boy." Well, either way, you know, none of us were there like 1,000 years ago. None of us were there 2,000 years ago. Like when someone does carbon dating, I'm always kind of like, how do you know that's 7 million years old? How do you know that's 2,000 years old? Like, I mean, this is a thing that people could argue that all the time. Like, you could say that, you know, it's only 300 years old. You could say that it's, you know, I mean, we don't know. We don't know. I mean, the oldest human on planet Earth right now is like what, 127 years old or something like that, 133 years old. I don't know. And so, I mean, that's basically, and then, you know, they got videos that were made of people giving like interviews back in 19, what year? What year were people giving interviews? Like, so maybe in like 1950s, you have people interviewing people who lived in the 1800s. So you can get some like historical stuff out of that. I mean, it's really a tough one. It's a rabbit hole, and you know, going down the rabbit hole is you could go over here, you could go over there. It's a rabbit hole. I think it's good to have the dialogue. I think it's good to have the dialogue from people from all sides. I think it's important. I think, you know, yeah, I think it's important to have the conversation because this is something that's happening. Someone said big tobacco. William, you avoid history. What? Marty says the golden rule: those with the gold make the rules. That is, I have heard the golden rule. The golden rule is, there's like a couple different golden rules, but that's one of them. The golden rule: those who have the gold make the rules. So that means they maybe make the history the way that they need to make the history. I don't know. JMO says, actually, DT could have solved this first go around, but he didn't sign the bill. Immigration process has been an issue for decades. Yeah, I mean, there's no president who's been able to solve this problem. I mean, you can go back all the way to what, Reagan, Clinton, Bush Sr., Bush Jr., Obama, Biden, Trump, 1 or 45, 47, whatever, you know. No one's, and it's an issue that probably won't be solved anytime soon, to be honest with you. Kathleen says, thanks for doing this live. We need to come together. That's, I think, what's the Bible say? Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. So I mean, you know, I think peace is a good thing. I mean, if you want to be a fair and fair person, you know, you would want to seek peace. I mean, that's kind of what I always have believed, is that there's got to be mediation. There's got to be representation for the immigrants, and you know, people got to be willing to listen. Are you willing to look at both sides of the coin? And I think that if you can put yourself in the other person's shoes, I think if Americans can put themselves in the migrant shoes, and then if the migrants can put themselves in the American shoes, maybe we can find a happy medium where everyone's like, you know, hey, Okay, where they basically say, hey, you're not as bad as I thought, where Americans can say that to the immigrants and the immigrants can say that to the Americans or the law enforcement or whatever. I think that, peace is a peaceful resolution, but violence on either side, whether it's violence from the authorities or violence from the people on the streets doing the protesting, violence is never the solution. I mean, if you look at anyone who's ever been successful at protesting, they almost always advocated for peace. So, I mean, it's always kind of been the case that there's a lot of arguing going on in the comments. So I'm gonna, if you're having an argument with other people, don't expect me to like read that comment. um, oh my gosh. Well, okay. So now there's just a lot of stuff going on. Anyway, I'm glad we had the conversation. Thanks to everyone who smashed up the likes. Sorry that it got a little bit heated there for a while, and comments got a little bit heated, but conversation happened. Hopefully, we can walk away, maybe find some resolution, and find some peace. I think on both sides. I think if both sides are seeking peace, that'd be great. So hopefully we can get some peace. And at the end of the day, I would say God bless Mexico, God bless the United States, and that's the way I feel about it. I love Mexico, I do. I went down all across Mexico. I love the United States. I love Arizona. I love California. Believe it or not, I love California. I do. It's a beautiful place. They got some good people there too, but got some problems. Got some problems. It's like having a dysfunctional family member, right? So at the end of the day, we'll see what we got going on. Thanks, JB. See you guys later.